Welcome to Josh's House of Nerd podcast.
Greetings, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and welcome to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable at my House of Nerd. Today's fake sponsor is Asteroids. Do you have them? If not, I bet your dad does. Now on to the show. Tonight, we're going to be talking again with Crit and John. Welcome to the podcast again, guys. I appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
And today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about the movie that we're doing with our new format. If you missed last week, we're changing up our format just a little bit. We're now moving to a theme in the month where each podcast we give the podcasters, I guess that's what we'll call ourselves. Somebody picks 3 movies that are kind of in a coded fashion of what the title is or what the movie is, and presents it to us. And then the other 2 have to pick from those 3 choices of coded message that what movies they want to watch. So last week this month's actual theme is guilty pleasure movies. And the movie they picked from last week was one of my guilty pleasures, and that was Loaded Weapon 1, which I love. All right. And we're going to go from there. We're going to have a discussion about what we talked about. So what'd you guys think?
I think before we get started, we talked about, its title being Loaded Weapon 1 and a spoof off of All Lethal Weapon.
Right.
But I think there's a few alternate titles that we could potentially give this movie.
Okay.
One of them is
I can't wait to hear them from you.
White Snake's new music video. That's the opening of Loaded Weapon 1. The full theme music. Let's see. Second title here is
Okay.
Lethal Weapon, Star Trek Edition.
What?
Why Star Trek?
Oh, because of Scotty.
You got William Shatner. You've got
'Cause it's
Scotty
got all
in there.
stars.
Coffee? No thanks. Cappuccino? Espresso? Hey, Scotty! Can you get this machine to work? I'm giving it all she's got, Captain. If I push it any harder, the whole thing will blow.
Awesome. I had forgotten that I've seen this movie so many times, and yet I still forgot William Shatner's in this movie. But I always remember that part. The other part was Scotty.
Is it just me, or does William Shatner lose his accent that he starts with at the beginning as the movie goes on?
That thing's all over the place.
It's just like Tim Curry's accent. You never know what it's going to be.
Who is it?
Wilderness girls.
There's no consistency. That's
Sometimes
okay.
it's French, sometimes it's Russian, sometimes it's just Tim Curry accent.
You know who I forgot was in there?
Sometimes you hear it come out of them. I mean, what did you hear?
I forgot that Whoopi Goldberg was in this.
Yeah,
and it was a small part, but she was great. That part where they turned her over, she's dead, and she's just looking up at the camera. You could tell she's just kind of trying to hold the face.
She pulls her
I think she
afro
was
full of dreads off.
Yeah, she pulled the afro.
Her disguise.
Okay, so you brought up the beginning of this movie, right? And me and my cousin. So this is one of those movies that me and my cousin watched all the time, and me and my best friend in high school. And there's a couple
on this podcast.
What's that?
Why aren't they on this podcast?
They really should be. If I really wish they had been on this podcast, because one of them I don't know. Anyways, we used to quote this like crazy, and there's a couple of quotes in here that we're going to get to that I've got to bring up that I said all the way through high school on this movie. That's how much I like, between that and Naked Gun movies and Airplanes.
You were part of the cool crowd then.
Oh, I was so cool.
Was this your generation's Will Ferrell's Anchorman? Was this like...
is this a generational movie? I mean, all the National Lampoons kind of are, but it's just a branding thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It was popular, but I don't think it was that popular.
I think this genre was more popular at then. I mean, it still exists, but it's in a little bit different. It's a little different than it used to be. but like Airplane kind of started that whole, well, I wouldn't even say Airplane. I think it was maybe even go back as far as Kentucky Fried Movie, which
Maybe.
the same people who did Airplane did Kentucky Fried Movie. That was their first movie. And that's kind of where that this genre started. And then once the Naked Guns got popular, you started seeing like Loaded Weapon and Hot Shots and all of those movies come through.
I think the one thing that this movie did that Hot Shots didn't, or even Lethal Weapon, is that I think the theme of this movie was to keep going even when a joke was done. Like that was the running theme for all of the jokes.
That's just comedy, though.
But there's a point where comedy, there's a stopping point that should happen, where something is funny and you get to the punchline and it's great and it's hilarious,
and then they drag it a little bit more. Yeah.
but this movie, it's like they drag it a little bit more and then even further until the joke is so far played out that it's almost a new joke entirely, and it's just. That's the theme of this movie. Everything is that way. The junk mail scene in the beginning, the bullet fights.
When he's looking through the magazine and all the leaflets are coming out, all of that.
Yeah,
what is it? Subscription
that's
cards?
A dated reference, man.
Yes.
Holy crap, that's a dated reference.
Yeah, but it just keeps building and building and building. And it's just and it builds up to nothing sometimes. I think that was the only thing that really annoyed me about this film is you have all of these jokes that build up and go nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's just a meta joke.
It's definitely inherent in this movie.
It's an extended dad joke. Like the dad jokes don't go anywhere. They just get to the punchline, everybody chuckles, and you move on. That's what this movie is. It's every setup gets to its punchline, and then you just move on as if the previous thing didn't happen. There's no continuity there. But I don't know if that's necessarily exclusive to this movie.
That's kind of a theme amongst all these types of movies.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Airplane. Airplane is a serious movie that they, like I was telling you about, they took it from another movie and it's almost word for word in most scenes. And they just extended it even a little bit further and added a couple things on the end to make it funny.
I never got the same feeling in Airplane. I think a really good example is when they're slapping the crap out of that one lady in Airplane. they do two of them and then they show you this line. And you get the picture and the joke's funny and it moves on to the next one.
Well, you can kind of see the difference between Zucker and Abrams. Their humor was definitely a little bit, I think it's a little bit smarter in my opinion, even though I think I really like this, Loaded Weapon. And I thought a lot of things are smart.
Yeah.
I feel like it's the comedy in those Naked Gun and Airplane is a little wittier.
The big difference here is if Loaded Weapon did that same scene with the beating the crap out of the lady, I think they would have gone through that entire line. There would have been 10 minutes of movie going through the entire line, so
Definitely
you could watch it.
Well,
so that's the difference I'm talking about. That's what I got from
to give
this
you
one
of my favorite scenes at the very beginning is when when Emilio Estevez gets out of the car and he steps on the cigarette, then he steps on the pipe or cigar, and then he steps on the pipe. And then you're just like, they almost started like from the very beginning of getting you used to like, this is going to go on the whole movie, this kind of thing. Because in a few scenes later that you see that there's another lady who kind of does almost the exact same thing. and drops a cigarette and then I can't remember what the other thing she dropped. But anyways, and then steps on it. But me and my cousin, my brother, that whole beginning scene, we used to really love it. And I understand that beginning scene, there's a lot of stereotypical things. This movie is very dated with stereotypical people. And so I say that and I'm like, I want to recognize that. But one of my favorite scenes was, that they go through. Me and my brother would always quote this one. He'd go, "Do you have this in taupe? No taupe, beef jerky." And stuff. My brother would just randomly be like, "Hey, dude, you got this?" He goes, "No, I don't have that beef jerky."
No, the starting scene was done fairly well. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed the music video type feel, and then it jumps into a 1970s sitcom.
What do you?
It makes the leap from this from this 1980s music video to a 1970s sitcom where he goes home, he's riding into the sunset, he goes to his beach house, he cries over his dog. Like it just turns into this.
I mean, you
sitcom.
realize what they're
And
mocking, right? I mean,
yeah, I get it.
Total
I get
Lethal
it.
Weapon.
Yeah, I mean,
I get it. But the music is what I want to point out. The music they're playing is, and I think they did it on purpose, but it was sitcom music. It was the music you'd see in, Family Matters.
No, I agree with you. It is that. And then yet you go on to the movie. I actually commented on some of the music later on. It actually sounded like Don't Tread on Me by Don't You Tread, Don't You Tread. I can't remember. That was the song. That was the group that was done by the lead singer of it's Ted Nugent and the lead singer of Styx for Damn Yankees. It sounded just like Don't Tread by Damn Yankees.
Yeah, see, I was thinking Family Matters the whole way. Not quite Brady Bunch level, but Family Matters. Then I started thinking, like, what would its sitcom name be? Like, what would Loaded Weapon's sitcom name be? Be like
You're just making me laugh. These jumps you're making, like, what would that's so funny.
Well, because I got stuck up on it. I was just like, if this is a sitcom, what's a better title?
Right.
It's like the Brady Bunch with guns.
The Brady Bunch with guns. Oh my goodness. Okay, talking about the beginning scene, still there's a couple of things I really loved about that part. I love that they play into the breaking of glass scene. Like every movie like this has got to have like multiple versions of someone breaking through glass, and I love how they did this. And it was almost like when he threw him through the glass, and they started doing like those gymnastic like twirls from
when he was knocked out of the convenience store.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then he walks up to him like Dirty Harry. I know you're asking yourself, did I shoot 173 times or 174 times? I'm just like, oh my goodness. I love that because, I mean, isn't that Dirty Harry?
That's Dirty Harry.
Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I liked the glass scene. I loved how they didn't cut away.
Yeah.
I love how you go through the glass, they sit there for a second.
And he's sitting there drinking the Slurpee.
Never cut away.
His kiwi cherry Slurpee.
This movie made me so hungry. Holy cow. And even the scene later on, we'll talk about it later, I guess, but the Silence of the Lambs scene where he starts talking about fava beans and 3-course dinners, and I'm just like, this is the worst. I shouldn't be hungry right now because I know what it's spoofing. But man, I'm starving. Start with the Slurpees, end up with like the 3-course dinners.
Everything centers around cookies.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. Well, then you have the dinner scene at Samuel L. Jackson's house. And it's just like, man. Why am I watching this at 10 p.m.?
Oh, yeah. That's so funny.
Well, and speaking of Samuel L. Jackson, I loved him in this role, not for his acting, just for his hair. He had nice hair in this one. Not full on afro like Pulp Fiction, but still a very nice styled, Samuel L. Jackson hair.
I love Samuel L. Jackson. And I love him, and I actually really like him in this part because, you don't always see him in that comedic side. There's a few movies he's done comedy in, but like he plays this movie almost along the lines of like the Leslie Nielsen did in The Naked Gun, very, very straight, but every once in a while kind of, winking to the camera a little.
I feel bad for the guy who played the police sergeant because he's supposed to be the one yelling the whole time. And
yeah,
Samuel L. Jackson can out yell anybody. Like it was perfect.
Well,
they even acknowledged it in the movie.
Yeah, they acknowledged it.
Yeah.
They break the fourth wall temporarily, and he's like, "Wait, I'm the only one that's supposed to be yelling." Like they completely shattered the fourth wall there. It was great.
I think it was the sixth wall, actually. No, we went from fourth wall to fifth wall.
Okay, we're suddenly spoofing our own podcast.
There's nothing wrong with that.
This is Josh's
how annoying
loaded
it is
house
to
of
listen
nerd.
to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. All right. So, like you were talking a little earlier about how you were surprised that Whoopi Goldberg was in there.
I mean, it's been so long since I've seen this movie. I
Yeah.
remember like I mean, Charlie Sheen, Dennis Leary, Shatner was a surprise. The Bruce Willis cameo was great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was great.
that was awesome.
I think Sheen was only in there to spoof Hot Shots. Like that's
Yeah,
the
of
only reason they
course.
got him for.
But
It's
it's
like
weird seeing him next to Emilio Estevez because it's obvious. Like I don't know, like it's just really weird seeing them next to each other.
because one's budget Charlie Sheen.
Yeah, kinda. Yeah,
What did
I
you
would
think
agree with
about that scene where they do it, where they're talking to Emilio Estevez, and he's like, "Hey, didn't your brother do a movie like this? Wasn't your brother in? Why are you doing this?" I think that's by the boat scene.
Yeah.
And stuff.
Well, they reference Hot Shots itself. They
Yeah.
reference Hot Shots the movie.
So much.
Well,
But
I mean, literally, like they say it Hot Shots. Like it wasn't just a tongue in cheek thing. It wasn't just
Yeah, no, they
making
actually said it.
They
Yeah.
actually say it.
Yeah.
yeah.
So I mean,
It was
that
in the
was definitely sixth wall or fourth wall right there. Gosh dang it,
sixth
Josh.
wall.
Are you sure it wasn't the seventh wall this time?
You're rude.
I think we just count every reference and it goes up.
Oh, great! Now we're on the eighth wall. Jeez.
Yeah.
We'll call this at the end. At the end, when we rate the movie, it'll be this is an eighth wall movie.
That's gonna be the thumbnail. Have you seen Loaded Weapon 1 that breaks the eighth wall? If not, come see our podcast.
So were there sequels to this movie? I never checked.
No, they always talked about it, but there's not, and but they always talked like they would do one, and it was semi-popular. It did do pretty good at the movie theaters because, like we were talking about earlier, it was kind of a thing at that time. People kind of liked those movies at that time. It was kind of the in thing a little bit, and so everybody had a good following, even though it wasn't like hyper popular, like the Naked Gun movies that got three sequels, and Airplane, who got one terrible sequel.
So why do you think this is a guilty pleasure? Like, what makes it a bad movie that you can enjoy compared to like something else?
I mean, I look at it as it's like, some of even the comments that John's made, like, like it's not a good movie. It's kind of, it's kind of in its own genre, its own niche. A lot of people look at it and go, this is boring. Or a lot of people nowadays, back in the day, it was still, I guess, treated a little bit. My mom thought I was crazy for liking those movies. But I know a lot of people who don't like that style of movies, and I guess that's why I considered it a guilty pleasure, because you watch it and it's like, it might have been
I
a
wasn't
better.
bored throughout it. I mean,
Definitely
there was no point where I like wanted to get out my phone and check something or whatever. It's like I actually watched the whole thing through.
But that is a guilty pleasure in my mind.
I
it
think
might be a bad movie or not a great movie, but you still enjoy it, and it totally.
I mean, it's a silly
grabs
movie
you.
for sure. Yeah, but
Yeah.
that's the whole. It intended to be, and it pulled it off.
I think part of what made it a guilty movie for me is that it was only $1.99 on Amazon Prime. So
Wait, why does that make it guilty?
because I spent less on it than I would a candy bar. So it was like I think I gained more calories watching it though than I would have doing a candy bar. But it's just so cheap. Like you want some really cheap thrills. It's a guilty pleasure movie just to be able to drop $1 and say, or drop $2 and say, all right, this is what we're watching tonight as a friend group. That's where I get the guilty pleasure. It's so cheap to do.
It's full of like we're saying dad jokes, and not everybody likes those kind of jokes. I mean,
True.
I know people who just absolutely hate these types of movies, and I can't understand why. I really can't. I think they're not like highbrow or anything like that. I mean, they're just meant to be fun.
You got
Definitely not highbrow.
You got Tim Curry doing a Frenchman's accent. It's not highbrow.
Poorly.
Poorly.
Yeah.
On purpose.
Dressing as a Girl Scout. That was awkward to watch. I'm just like, all right. Somebody had to convince Tim Curry to get into that outfit.
Wait, are you serious?
No, I'm not. Because
Okay.
you don't have to convince Tim Curry to do much.
No, you don't.
mean,
I mean, if you can be in the Rocky Horror Picture Show,
yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
I know that's what I'm.
I'm,
It
I'm
was-
pretty sure
he does
pretty sure
good look in
Tim
stockings,
Curry
though.
probably had that in the writer. He's like, okay, I'll do your movie, but I have to be able to dress up as a. And the girls, and he's, and the guys were probably, the script writers were probably like, hey, let's just make the whole movie about that. You know, that's where basically that's felt like where it all came from.
No, I think maybe they just walked in on Tim Curry doing, I don't know, improv somewhere, and that's where the movie came from.
Well,
Just Tim
that's
Curry
Did you-
improv.
Did
they
you
didn't
guys
hire
know?
Tim Curry. He was just doing the process, and they built a movie around him.
Yeah.
You know what's really
Why are
funny?
you filming me?
You know what's really funny? We were talking about when we're talking about Whoopi Goldberg, and you talk about her pulling off her wig. I
Yeah.
just had a I don't know, epiphany moment, about that whole scene, because it's Tim Curry when he walks up to her
Yeah,
door,
he
right?
pulls off- yeah,
And
pulls
she
off the wig.
opens the 9 security doors that she
Yeah,
has.
that was great. It was a
I
good
love
gag.
that part. And then she opens the door and she doesn't notice that it's Tim Curry in a full beard and mustache and thinks it's a Girl Scout until he rips off that wig. And then she
Yeah.
rips off hers. I just got that, man. I just
Oh. I'm
realized that
That's like 30 years.
well,
So-
that's why I like these kinds of movies, though, is maybe something I did know at one time, I can rediscover it. And a lot of these movies, if you watch, you can discover something almost every single time that you watch it, something in the background, in the foreground.
It just shows you how much work you have to put in to even do like a mediocre movie. Like it's just an amazing amount of work.
Mhm.
And a lot of it's going to fly past the audience.
Well, and so the Whoopi Goldberg scene reminds me of something that flew past me when you've got Samuel Jackson and he's discussing his partner with Emilio, and they're discussing, I went to my partner's kindergarten and all that jazz, and he starts talking, not Samuel Jackson, what's his face, starts talking about
Emilio
Claire.
Estevez. Yeah, Claire.
I had forgotten that Claire's a dog by that point. So I'm just like, what the hell? Because he's talking about how
As Claire
she would come
nuzzles
up
his
and-
crotch.
nuzzling her crotch. I'm just like, what is this? My wife walks in at this wrong moment. I'm just like, this is PG-13. It says it's PG-13.
So you were right there with Samuel L. Jackson as he was living through the listening.
Yeah, exactly. It took
talk
me
about his
another
dog.
5 minutes to realize that to remember that Claire's a freaking dog.
That's funny.
Oh,
I'm just
okay.
like,
That's
I lost
that's just precious right there, man. That's just awesome. Oh,
I blame writing notes down, because I was writing notes at that point.
I actually, Crit inspired me. I wasn't going to write notes down. And then I'm like, okay, there's so many hilarious quotes in this movie. I'm not going to remember all my favorite ones. And so I had to write them down.
I had
Yeah.
to stop after a while. I was just like, this is taking too, I don't know how to explain this. So I was just like, I'll just write names of people.
Just start
and-
drawing pictures. Send those pictures in at the end of the podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm going to say one
This
of
is
my,
representation.
yeah, one of my favorite comment or sayings they have is in that scene after Whoopi Goldberg dies, he shoots her 90 times. It's
Yeah,
like, oh, and don't park on Elm.
yeah, he'll never make it.
I love the whole scene that they come in, and it's when they come in and Samuel L. Jackson looks over at the one guy, and I think of him for some reason. Every time I see him, I think of him as being in Police Academy for some reason. But anyways, it's the guy. He's sitting there investigating. He's like, "Hey, so and so, how you doing today?" He goes, "I don't know, Sarge. I've got dandruff, sephoria, itching, and burning, and."
Yeah, it's the whole shampoo.
And then
commercial
the whole
basically sucking
the
your
shampoo
blood.
joke, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Irv is his name. it just came to my mind. Hey, Irv, what's wrong? Oh, I don't know. I think I got itching, burning, dandruff, sephoria. And he goes, oh, try this. And then later on, how they come back and say, and then he goes,
Scrubbing his
here,
head.
try this. And he goes, hey, so how is that? He goes, it's tingling. That means it's working, Irv. Me and my brother would
they had to get their
absolutely
sponsor.
quote that all the time. What's that?
Head and Shoulders had to have done some sponsorship there. I think they were making fun of all the product placement. for
Well,
sure.
And I think it's hilarious that
I think the whole
comes.
joke. You
What's
can
it, go
see where
ahead?
the joke came from. The joke came from
A commercial.
no, I don't think so. I think the joke actually came from every cop movie where someone's walking into a scene and that exact thing, and the detectives like scratching their head, like trying to. That's bad writing in other
Wow.
movies about how how do you show that this person hasn't figured things out yet, to show that your
Here's
character that's walking in on it is very smart and can figure it out, can just walk into the scene and figure out what's going on.
here's Crit with his genius IQ here.
No, shut up.
Pulling this joke out of nowhere. Like,
No,
holy
no,
crap!
that's
I didn't
I'm
even
serious.
think about it
That's
that way.
yeah, that's where they're coming from. Is that they're taking this trope and they're giving it a totally different context. In that it's not someone trying to figure out the thing. He's literally got dandruff and it turns into a shampoo commercial. You can see
Yeah,
them
see, I didn't
watching.
catch that at all.
Yeah, you can see them watching all the other shows for research and going, look, every time they walk into a thing and they want to show, the main character is smarter and more intelligent and stuff like that. They always have some other detective. I can't figure it out. What's going on? I don't know. And that scratch their head. That's kind of the universal thing. So yeah, I could kind of see how they wrote the joke and then just kind of went from there and went, oh yeah, what if it's not that? What if it's this? And it's the shampoo thing. Oh, let's keep going with that. And I can kind of see
Yeah.
where that joke came from.
Hey, Captain, you don't have that. I know.
Hadn't even thought about that. I passed on that joke and
Really?
yeah, it was okay.
It was
But
okay. I didn't really laugh at it either.
The one that caught me was the photographer, where he takes his pictures, like, it'll be ready in a week.
Oh yeah, and he takes a
him his
ticket.
number.
Yeah.
You know what's really funny? In the second
Oh,
Naked Gun, there's that exact joke.
Didn't he ask him for man, he asked him for something like I don't think like sepia tone or something like that, but he asked for like, like
Matte finish.
no, he said matte finish instead of glossy.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
that's what it was. Yeah. Oh yeah.
modern day Instagram.
Yep.
But no, that was the joke that got me in that whole scene. Was basically, this is my trip to Disneyland.
Mine was when they were like, oh, it's a suicide, and he turns her over and says, oh, she must have surprised herself because of her face. I was like, what?
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
What I would say, if I had to see the definitely the Head and Shoulders one, that's one of my favorites. That's something that me and my brother definitely have said over and over again over the years. That's probably why it's so much fun. But I really love one of my favorite ones is the ones that you pointed out was the Hannibal Lecter scene, and how he says
the same hallway.
It's really similar. Yeah, it might be the same.
Think it was the same scene.
Was it?
Could be the same hallway.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it's filmed probably in the same location, so why not?
And I love that scene at the end. I would love to eat those cookies with some fava beans and a nice Fresca.
Okay,
and he just keeps going. And he just keeps going.
He does.
That's the movie's thing. We just keep going with that. And my poor wife, who has
it's someone you know,
issues,
and he's all running down the beach with several different people. No, not him.
But he and I never.
No, not like that.
Very progressive. Very progressive film.
One of the best things I thought was, as we get kind of towards this movie, one of the best I thought additions is when Kathy Ireland gets introduced into this movie, and it's not her originally that starts out as the character. It's the lady from Moonlighting, the secretary from Moonlighting, who is always plays kind of different parts.
Yeah, I wouldn't have caught that. I don't remember the secretary from Moonlighting.
Yeah, well, I loved Moonlighting when I was a kid.
No doubt.
But she was that lady's married to Tiny Tim, and so that's why it's stuck in my head. Like,
that's random.
I know. I don't know why. I know that because of my mom, but
you're blaming a lot of things on your mom.
I was wondering,
but it's true.
She have some posters of Tiny Tim up? I'm confused.
No, she just gives me this random information. I'm just like, sweet.
This is like Jeopardy.
Yeah.
So if you ever go on Jeopardy, you can thank your mom.
Well, if it's movie stuff, sure. Movie, music, TV. A lot of people in my family won't play games that have anything to do with trivia about those things. So
that's kind of how my dad is. We would take long road trips, and he'd have the jots and tittles.
Yep.
The big deck of cards, and mom would ask him questions, and the kids would sit there in pain because we had no idea what any of this was. And here we are on a trip down to Nevada. It was the worst.
It is the worst.
I hate trivia games because of that.
By the way, guys, I think we're being followed. Don't turn around. Don't do it.
That was a pretty funny.
That is a funny part, isn't it?
That was pretty good.
Oh, hold on. I'm gonna lose them. Oh, yeah. I think they're gone.
That was pretty good. And then they steal. It's not too long after that they steal the bikes.
And the bikes blow up.
The bikes blow up after the explosion. So they're spoofing. Man, they're spoofing everything at that point. With
love it with
any
the
kind of car fight.
I love it with those two vehicles. You know, it's what is it? Their car, and then a taxi, and then right after that, it's like, oh, it's just a couple of cars. That's going to take more for us to get off the case. He's like, it's not going to take a hell of a lot more.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Samuel
that was
Jackson's
pretty
timing
good.
on that was perfect.
It was.
To land that joke. He's going, not a hell of a lot more.
It was great.
And
I like how they go in and everybody's like, oh yeah, it's another suicide with all the people in Dennis Leary's house and all the dead models and stuff like that. It's, oh, look, another suicide.
Oh man.
yeah, Dennis Leary does a good job in that. I forgot he was in it, and I love Dennis Leary. And so
I wish
I like
Tim
Dennis Leary.
Curry. I wish Tim Curry had even more screen time than he did. Because one, I wanted to see how many different accents he could do. Because every time he had a different accent.
Yeah.
So just to see how many different accents he could do. And then you don't know this, but man, I am a huge fan of Tim Curry. I love him. He's
Really?
such a good actor. He has such a good range. I loved him in Command and Conquer, the video game. where he
Oh,
played-
Red Alert 3, yeah.
no, he wasn't even. He was in Red
Or
Alert.
Red Alert
2.
2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played the Russian, and they're going to space.
Yeah.
He's fantastic. Him in Clue. Clue is one of those other movies that is just.
I'm sorry. Nothing beats him in as Darkness. And,
What is
dang
that?
it,
I
what's
don't even know that
Tom Cruise
reference.
movie?
Is it?
Yeah, it's the Tom Cruise movie with. It was a fantasy movie. What's that called again?
Like
wasn't
Legend
it-
or?
Oh
Yeah, it's
yeah,
Legend.
Legend. Yeah, straight
Yeah.
up Legend.
I thought that was.
He
Was that
plays
Tim
the
Curry?
Lord of Darkness.
Yeah, he's Darkness. He's the
Oh.
Satan dude.
He shows him how to propose. Oh man.
I had no idea that he was in that movie.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't know that was him. I totally forgot.
Iconic, man.
Yeah, he played it so well too. But I absolutely love him. I think he's one of those actors that
He
didn't get
definitely had-
shafted because he did a lot of good movies, but I wish I would have seen him in more. I mean, he was in Hunt for the Red October, for heaven's sake, and that's one of my all-time favorite movies.
Hmm. So you're saying
But-
that won't be on your guilty pleasures next week?
No, because it's a fantastic movie, and I could never stand anyone saying anything bad about it. So
That it's ever guilty.
I really do like it
Should
too.
never feel guilty watching it. Yeah,
now
I
Congo,
think.
him
I
and
think.
Congo.
Okay, I
Oh,
think
God.
you're right. Tim Curry had basically a bit part. Like he really didn't have much to do in the show. Like Shatner took
No.
all the scenes. Not that the writing was necessarily great for Shatner, but he definitely took all the scenes
He
when
was,
they made him the big bad. Like if Shatner wasn't there,
yeah.
and
He
Curry was the
wasn't.
big bad the
and
whole time, I think it
Shatner-
would have worked.
Shatner sure hammed it up there.
Shatner wasn't even playing William Shatner. He wasn't playing Star Trek William Shatner. He was playing his spoken word soundtrack William Shatner.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
kind of. Yeah.
I'm the Rocket Man. Like that's how he was playing this role. Was as if he's doing some spoken word voiceover for some of these other songs. That was William Shatner in this movie.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is yeah. He's so good. I love it. Shatner, he's kind of hit and miss for me. Like when he's not in Star Trek, he's a little hit and miss for me. And this one, he was definitely a hit. It is a weird accent that he does in this one.
Yeah,
And stuff.
But you're absolutely right. He stole all of Tim Curry's scene.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll never forgive him for that.
So what's
Probably
the
not.
movie that they towards the end where they start when Kathy Ireland comes in that they spoof? What's the name of that movie?
Fatal Attraction?
Is it Fatal Attraction that had
it?
Sharon Stone in it and
I don't know. If it's
where they do
Fatal-
the famous scene?
Okay, what famous scene?
Yeah, you wouldn't have seen this.
It wasn't
I
Fatal.
didn't even see it.
Was it Fatal Attraction? Because that was Glenn Close in that one.
Oh, you're right. That is Glenn Close. I got it wrong. Single white female.
No,
Single white.
why can't I? Oh, great! Now I'm gonna have to Google it.
Was it Basic Instinct?
Basic Instinct.
Basic Instinct. Okay,
There
I
we
It
know.
was.
Single white
I've
female. was
seen
in the same
Basic
time frame, so
It was.
How dare you?
Um,
I've seen Basic Instinct.
so have I. The famous
92. Single white female and Basic Instinct came out in the same year, 1992. But
I
yeah,
didn't know that.
that's
Jennifer
yeah,
Jason Lee and Sharon
Yeah,
Stone. Yeah,
Sharon
what?
Stone. Yeah, it had so that's the interrogation scene.
Yes.
Yeah, where they spoofed that whole thing, and that was I mean, it was kind of obvious where they were going with it, but they kind of drug it on for a long time.
Well,
To John's point,
one of my favorite things they ask her is like, "Do you sleep in the nude?" Only when I'm naked.
That's
yeah, you would like that
that's
dad
like
joke. That's
Wayne's
right up your alley.
I know it.
That's like Wayne's World right there.
Uh-huh.
That's full on Wayne's World.
I had to write that one down because I liked it so much.
I'm pretty sure this predates Wayne's World. So
I don't think it does actually.
No.
really,
No, because
Supposed
at
to.
the very
This
end,
was-
don't they do
Go
at the
ahead.
very
Oh,
end
because-
scene? They do the
Yeah, at the very
headbanging.
end scene, they do the
it was the
headbanging from
previous.
Wayne's World.
It was Wayne's World was 92 also,
Yeah.
and
I
Loaded
think-
Weapon was 93.
I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure this was post Wayne's
I've
World.
got that in my notes.
Oh my gosh, you're right though. Yeah, the Bohemian Rhapsody at the end.
And the
Yeah.
headbanging, just like they do in.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I see what they're doing. I didn't really like it that much, but that's okay.
No. I think they were trying to figure out how to end the film.
Yeah,
I wish they would have taken another scene out of Rambo to end the film, though. That's what I would have enjoyed more. There's just more guns, more explosions, more everything.
they probably blew their entire budget when they blew up Bruce Willis's house.
The-
No,
I mean,
just did that.
they
just
shot
did
that-
in real life.
They shot that with like 6 cameras, and
did that in real
and
life,
like
too.
recut it and everything over and over again. You could tell it was a money shot because they were like showing it from all the different angles and re-exploding the house a couple of times on screen.
I wonder
like-
if they even did that for that movie. I wonder if they took some other poor movies footage that just died. That happens.
Maybe. I don't
You
know.
get a film that gets canceled filming, and you have all of this stock footage that can't
Well,
be used.
Because the whole joke is that it looks exactly like, and it actually is, the outside set for Emilio Estevez's character's house. That's what they blow up, and you can actually see it blow up. It's not like there's
That's
a really crappy movie out there called oh man, I can't remember it now, but you can actually a couple of movies I've seen like are really bad. You can see the explosion happen, but you know it's happening in front of the building they're actually wanting to quote unquote blow up, and when the smoke kind of moves a little bit, you can kind of see the building still behind it. Like it's obvious they blew up that little trailer, on the beach.
Right.
So, and yeah, it's probably the last thing they did in production, but still, they used so many angles of it and they shot it. It just happened to be it's kind of towards the last half of the movie instead of the finale.
Yeah.
So they probably didn't have what I'm saying is they probably didn't have the money to actually go all out with a whole Yeah. They wasted all their money on all the glass panes that the thugs had to be pushed through.
Something I'd forgotten about when we talked about Josh, you mentioned Police Academy.
Mhm.
If you remember, Gene Quintano, the director for this, wrote for 2 of the Police Academy sequels.
That makes sense because
He
the
wrote for
lackey
3.
in 2 of the Police Academy movies is that Irv, guy. I'm pretty sure he's kind of the lackey in the police, the bad sergeant that's in those movies. His kind of lackey.
Well, and then this was one of only 3 movies that Quintano directed.
That's it.
He's only directed 3 movies. That's it.
Oh wow.
He directed Honeymoon Academy, Why Me, and then Loaded Weapon 1, and then he just wrote for the rest of everything else he did.
That's because there's only 2 movies there that I even recognize, and the first one you said I have no clue.
I have no clue of all of them except for the Police Academies and now Loaded Weapon 1.
I recognize Why Me, but just barely. and stuff. But yeah.
No, but I thought to mention that because we talked about Police Academy.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was going to bring up one of my favorite scenes in this movie. One of my favorite scenes in this movie that okay, we said this a little bit too much when I was going through high school, and it's a little naughty, but that's okay, and that's why I love it.
Okay. We can edit it out.
No, it doesn't swear. It's just naughty.
YouTube for children will have an issue with this.
I'm definitely not classifying this as a kids channel, by the way.
Demonetized. Be careful.
This is not a kids channel. Even though I try to keep it I want to keep it family friendly. It's not a kids channel. But the part at the very end where Emilio Estevez is he's sitting there and he's fighting with him, and then Samuel Jackson comes in and Emilio says, "Hey Luger, you came." And he goes, "Yeah, but that's personal." And so you can kind of, so every time my friend would say, hey Josh, you came, and I'd be like, "That's personal." You know, we'd always make that joke everywhere in high school. It was nonstop.
And high school's the place for it. I mean,
right.
That's where I should stay.
That's the humor. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of this movie, it's high school humor. I mean, it definitely is. Yeah. It's potty humor. I mean,
yeah.
Well,
so
it's relatively tame compared to a bunch of stuff now, but yes.
True.
Yeah. I have exhausted
like scary
my
movie.
notes on this.
What's
as
that?
Comprehensive as they were, I've exhausted my notes.
Yeah, I've gotten through all the
last
things
one I have is. Yeah.
One of the last things I have that we didn't talk about. Of course, we talked about, let's see. We talked a little bit off recording about Scotty. And I love that James Doohan was in this movie. I mean, classic Scotty
for sure. Yeah.
Oh yeah, just
cameo.
Love the cameo that he's doing. I'll give it all she got, Captain. You know, all I can, Captain. I just love that. It's just awesome on a cappuccino machine.
Yeah,
it's just classic. I mean, I love that. And then I thought I loved the last part in the right around the Bruce Willis scene when they're in there and they're in Emilio Estevez's trailer and they start showing each other scars just like in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah,
and
it was a good bit.
I love that. I love the plate in her head, and I never looked that hard. It literally says "Made in China" on it.
Yeah, Made in China. Yeah.
I didn't notice that before. It's a literal plate and stuff. And then my favorite was the nickel bear night and low grade transplant when he opens up the hamster inside. Oh, that's my notes too. And there's so much more of this movie that I could just go on and on about. I mean, it is just nonstop like fun and stuff.
Okay.
Yes.
How do we want to sum up our loaded weapon?
Well, okay, so let's do. I never thought about this. Do we want to rate it? Do we want to score it? That's something that I guess I've never thought of with this new format. On a.
John, what do you want to do?
That's a good question. Given the choice, would you watch this again? We already know the answer since it's a guilty pleasure, so we can't really necessarily say that. I would. I think that.
Would you recommend it or not? I mean,
no. How would you?
Or better yet,
no. How would your family react to this if you sat and forced them to watch it on Christmas Day?
Beyond me and my mom and brother, most of my family would probably laugh their butts off. My kids, on the other hand, would be bored out of their minds.
So Dated. I think Dated is
Dated is it's like Ace Ventura we watched 2 weeks ago. They laughed every once in a while. It was very sparse. Where me and my wife were just rolling on the floor in spots.
I'll give this 5 beavers out of 10.
Love that crit.
5 gratuitous beavers out of 10.
5 gratuitous beavers. Love it. Well, I mean, I'm going to definitely score this a little higher if we're going to go on the beaver scale.
I had to explain that joke to my wife. She had never.
Really?
She had never heard that term.
Wow. All right. Fair enough.
Really? Has she ever seen Naked Gun and the nice beaver scene?
No, she hates these kind of movies. movies.
Does she?
Like absolutely hates it. So if I was going to rate this movie, it would be my wife hates it, and if I mean, I'd put it on the wife scale of must have her phone or will not watch.
Right.
Sounds like I need to dream up a good scale of along those lines there. Can you watch it without a phone? Can you watch it? I'm definitely give this like more of like I'm going to go with the Beaver scale here, and I would give it definitely an 8.
An 8?
8 or a 9. Yeah.
Just out of enjoyment, not out of like quality of the movie.
Oh, out of pure enjoyment.
Okay.
Yeah, out of pure enjoyment.
Okay.
Like, and that's on the scale of if I had to give a movie a 10, it would be The Naked Gun in this style of a movie. I mean,
okay.
Airplane and Naked Gun are at the very top of my list. It would be kind of a number 10. So this is just a little lower than a Naked Gun, but
okay.
2 levels down.
As we go through like all these different movies that we're going to end up doing, I will be interested to know what movie will get below a 5 for you.
Oh, this is a challenge.
Yeah, I'm interested to see
This is why we'll
it.
never do the Hunt for the Red October, because I don't know that I could be friends if any of you rated it below.
So I don't know if anybody out there in podcast land out there, Crit always accuses me of not liking everything. Because I kind of do, don't I?
Yeah, you have a tendency to enjoy most things, which isn't a bad thing.
Yeah.
You don't have to hate stuff. It's just always interesting to me if we find something that you're just like, no, I really don't like that.
I try to find the good in all things, man.
So who knows? Maybe whichever one of my 3 suggestions you guys pick this week for next week, maybe we'll find one you don't like at all.
Game?
I hope not.
Or challenge accepted, dude.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hear your.
So yeah, let's hear your 3 picks for next week that we have to choose from. That's
okay. These are my guilty pleasure picks. With bad descriptions, and both of you have to unanimously agree on one. I know which one I want you to pick. I'll tell you this right now. One of them is a Nicolas Cage movie.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Actually, I might have.
I bet you already know which one it is too.
I don't think you do, but it might give it away. Josh might know it when I give the description, because he probably will know that type of thing. But,
as long as it's not The Wicker Man, I'm good.
I'm saving that for later.
The Wicker Man. We're watching the 1973 Wicker Man.
That's actually decent.
Okay.
Horrible way.
All right. So the first one. What's less cool than jets and Tom Cruise?
Okay.
What's
next one?
Okay.
Drumming up drama in a dynamically desperate environment.
Wow, you've made these hard.
And the final one. What hijinks can happen when an alcoholic group takes in a straight-laced non-drinker?
Holy crap.
I'm going to have to do the Tom Cruise.
Okay.
What's less
Josh?
cool than Tom Cruise and jets?
That one caught my attention too, because I know the other two, the last one kind of caught my attention a little bit, or the second one, I mean, what was that one again?
The last one? Or
the second one?
Second one. Drumming up drama in a dynamically desperate environment.
Yeah, it wasn't that one. It was the third one.
You're going to make me reread all these again.
No, I'm good.
Right.
I'm good. I would agree with John. I'm going to agree with John on this one. That one jumped out more than anything.
Jets and Tom Cruise?
Yeah.
Helicopters and Nicolas Cage. Congratulations.
That was a Nicolas Cage one?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It is Firebirds, 1990.
Holy crap. I don't know if I've ever seen that movie.
Good.
Well, that's the
good.
I honestly don't even know what it's about. So this is good. This is great.
Yeah. This is a guilty pleasure for me for sure, because it is not a very good movie.
I look forward to this, Crit.
This was one of the films that my dad would watch, and I would catch glimpses of.
It does have Tommy Lee Jones in it also.
How did I not know this about this movie? And it's got those two in it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know what's wrong with me.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm just glad I found something that you haven't seen yet. Do you want to know what the other two were?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So the one of them was the 1999 movie, The 13th Warrior.
Oh, that one's amazing.
Yeah.
That's a
I
pretty good
still think
movie.
I
It's
still
not a
think it's
good
guilty
movie,
pleasure.
but I enjoy it
It's a guilty pleasure. Yeah, no, for
Yeah.
sure.
without a doubt.
But
That was
that's
the
that's Antonio Banderas.
Antonio.
yeah.
Antonio.
That was the hijinks with the alcoholic group with the straight-laced non-drinker.
Straight-laced, yeah, with the Vikings.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
And then another guilty pleasure I have, and this I don't know. Some people think it's a good movie. I don't know if it necessarily is, but I definitely enjoyed parts of it and stuff like that. Is the drumming up drama that is Drumline 2002.
That one crossed my mind when you said that, and I actually like Drumline a lot.
Well, I still haven't found a movie you don't like.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm glad we picked Firebirds. I wouldn't have minded 13th Warrior, but Drumline, I would call in sick to the next podcast.
Have you seen it yet? Have you seen it before?
You'd have watched it.
Have you seen Drumline?
I've watched it bits and pieces, but it's got zero, there's nothing about it that screams watch me or
I know,
enjoy
that's
me.
the whole point, man. If I'm gonna watch a movie that I don't like that you suggest, and I will, you got to do the same thing, man.
Yeah, I will. I would.
Makes it fair.
I actually rented Drumline and I really enjoyed it, but I also am a band nerd.
Yeah, that's another reason why I like it.
And that's I love it. I love all of the competitiveness, all of the stuff they do with the drums and spinning them, and it's so much fun.
Gotta
Anyways,
get you to watch Whip It.
Okay.
What is that?
All right, you can't give away all of the stuff that he hasn't seen yet on this one podcast. You got to save some up. All right, so Firebirds,
Nicolas Cage, and Tommy Lee Jones. I look forward to it.
We're gonna watch it this week, and so if you watch it also this week, then you'll be ready for the podcast that we record, and then we will spoil the crap out of Firebirds the next podcast.
I look forward to it because there's not that many. I mean, it's sometimes it's hard for me to come upon a show and say, oh, I don't know that movie.
Yeah,
I thought of a movie that I wish I would have picked for you guys and I didn't, and I saw a little bit of it last night.
Yeah,
from this last week, just to kind of follow up the rest of this. Space Camp.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah, I used to watch it as a kid.
So did I. I saw that and I'm like, this is not a great movie, but it still gives me goosebumps to watch that movie.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having us on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it. And to all you out there, I say to you, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper from us here at the Josh's House of Nerd. Have a good night and goodbye. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness, please like and subscribe.